The dining hall was quiet except for the soft sound of silver spoons touching golden plates. Alien guests in rich clothes whispered to one another, their voices smooth but sharp, like glass cutting in the night. At the head of the table sat the millionaire alien mother. Tall, graceful, her eyes glowing with pride and power. She owned ships, cities, even the respect of human governments. But tonight she carried a secret pain, hidden deep under her perfect smile. Her daughter sat beside her, fragile, delicate, with legs that had never walked. Since birth the girl had been paralyzed, her lower body silent, useless. No medicine of her advanced alien race had helped, no machine, no surgery, no cure. Every doctor had said the same cruel words. She will never walk. The mother had spent endless wealth trying. She had traded jewels for machines, power for promises, but all hope had been crushed. So she gave her daughter the finest chair, smooth and floating on air. She dressed her in silver gowns, placed a crown of light on her head, but every time she looked at her child, her heart broke. Power meant nothing when her daughter could not stand. The guests raised crystal cups filled with shining liquid. They toasted the mother for her success, for her empire, but she heard only silence. Her eyes always returned to her daughter's small hands, folded neatly on the table. The girl smiled politely, but behind her smile was a storm. She dreamed of running, of dancing, of chasing the wind, dreams that seemed impossible. Then it happened. The girl shifted in her chair, her eyes glowing strangely, bright. The mother noticed first, her sharp senses catching the tiny movement. A shiver passed through the hall. The girl placed her hands on the table, as if gathering strength. Her lips whispered words too soft for others to hear. And then she pushed herself up, the chair moved back. The guests gasped. The mother froze, her mind refusing to believe. Her daughter's weak legs, once dead as stone, trembled. Her knees bent, her body rose higher. She was standing. The mother's plate slipped from her fingers. It fell, slow and heavy. The crash echoed across the dining hall, breaking the silence like thunder. Food spilled across the polished floor. Every guest turned their glowing eyes toward the girl. Not one spoke. Not one moved. The girl's hands shook, her legs wobbled, but she took one step, then another. Her voice cracked as she laughed, small but clear. "I can walk," she whispered, her face shining with tears. "I can walk." "Do." Mother's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to run, to hold her child, but fear held her frozen. This was impossible. She had seen doctors from 10 worlds. She had heard 1,000 no's. And yet her daughter was walking right before her eyes. The guests whispered now, voices sharp with shock. How is this possible? Who healed her? What power is this? The mother's hands trembled as she reached out. Her heart pounded like a drum of war. She felt joy but also terror. If her daughter could walk now, then someone had done the impossible. But who and why? The girl turned her eyes to the far end of the hall. There in the shadows stood a human, not dressed in gold, not covered in jewels. Simple clothes, simple face. Yet his eyes carried fire, a quiet strength. The girl whispered again, but this time her words were for her mother. Thanks to him. The mother's chest tightened. Her alien pride clashed with her breaking heart. She had trusted no one, believed no one. Yet this human, one fragile creature from a weaker world, had done what no alien doctor could. Her empire shook in that moment, not from war, not from money, but from hope. The hall filled with silence again. Every alien eye turned from the girl to the human. Suspicion, fear, jealousy, disbelief, but above all, wonder. The mother stood slowly, her knees weak. Her daughter stood before her, walking, smiling, alive in a way she had never been. The millionaire mother's perfect world had shattered. But inside that broken world, something new was born. A miracle and a question. What secret did this human carry, and how far would the story go? Long before the dinner, long before the mother's plate crashed to the floor, a secret story had already begun. It started on a night of rain when the city lights flickered and shadows stretched across the tall alien towers. The daughter sat alone in her room, staring out of the crystal window. She hated nights like this, because silence made her feel even more trapped in her chair. Her mother's wealth could buy stars, but not the simple joy of walking. Tears formed in her eyes, falling quietly. She whispered to herself, "Why me?" Then a soft knock at her door. Not the usual knock of servants, not the heavy knock of guards. This knock was gentle, almost unsure. The girl wiped her tears and looked up. "Enter," she said, her voice tired. The door opened, and there stood a human man. He looked nothing like the polished aliens who served her mother. His clothes were plain, worn from travel, his shoes stained by dust. His hair was messy, his hands rough with work, but his eyes, they were sharp, glowing with quiet determination. He stepped inside and bowed his head. "Forgive me," he said, softly. "I should not be here." The girl blinked in surprise. Humans were rare in her mother's palace. They were seen as weak, primitive, always at the edge of alien society. "Who are you?" she asked. He looked up, his voice calm. "My name does not matter, but I have come because I believe you can be healed." The words hit her heart like lightning. She had heard this promise many times, from alien doctors, from false healers, from machines that only brought pain. She narrowed her eyes, anger mixing with hope. "Do not lie to me," she whispered. "I have suffered enough." The man stepped closer, his shadow falling over her chair. "I do not bring magic," he said. "I bring something different, something your people never consider." He pulled a small box from his bag. It was simple. Metal scratched and dented. No glowing lights. No alien symbols. Inside were strange wires, small tools, and a device that looked almost broken. But when he touched it, the pieces hummed with a faint vibration. The girl felt it, deep in her bones. "What is this?" she asked. The man smiled faintly. "This is not only a machine," he said. "It is a bridge, a way to wake sleeping nerves, a way to speak to the body in its own forgotten language." She did not understand, but something in his voice carried truth. He knelt beside her chair, his eyes gentle. "Child," he said, "I will not promise miracles, but I will fight for you, if you let me try." Her heart trembled. Every doctor before had spoken with pride, with arrogance, but this man spoke with humility, with quiet strength. She wanted to believe him, but fear chained her. "What if it fails?" she whispered. "What if it hurts?" he answered softly. "Then I will stay and I will try again. I will not leave you." The girl's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever said that. Everyone left after failure. Everyone walked away. But this man promised to stay. For the first time, she felt something stronger than pain. She felt trust. That night, she agreed. She let him place the device on her legs, thin wires connecting to her skin. He worked in silence, his hands steady. Then the current moved, not fire, not burning, but a strange warmth. Her body shook, her muscles screamed. As if waking from a long sleep, she cried out, gripping the chair. But the man's hand rested gently on hers. "Breathe," he whispered. "This is the first step." The pain was sharp, but inside it she felt something new. Movement. Her toes twitched, just for a second. She gasped, eyes wide. "I felt it," she said, her voice shaking. The man smiled, not with pride but with relief. "Yes," he said, "it has begun." For days he returned in secret. At night when the palace slept, he entered quietly, carrying his strange box. Each time he pushed her further made her muscles cry, made her heart race, and each time she grew stronger. From a twitch to a lift, from a lift to a push. She began to believe, but they had to hide. If her mother discovered a human experimenting on her daughter, he would be thrown out, perhaps worse. So the girl kept the secret. She smiled at the dinner table as if nothing had changed, but inside she carried fire, step by step. Her body was waking. One night, after a long session, she collapsed back into her chair, sweat covering her face. The man packed his tools, his face pale with exhaustion. "Why do you do this?" she asked, her voice weak. He paused, his eyes distant. "Because I once had a sister who could not walk," he whispered. "I could not save her, but maybe I can save you." The girl's heart broke for him. She understood now. This was not only science, it was love. Not the love of wealth, not the pride of power, but human love, stubborn and unyielding. That night she swore to herself she would walk, not just for her, but for him, for the human who risked everything to give her hope. The days grew heavier in the palace. The daughter's secret training continued each night, hidden like a forbidden fire. Her body was changing, her muscles trembling with life. But with every step forward came danger. If her mother found out, the human would be cast away, maybe punished. The girl knew this, yet her heart told her to continue, because for the first time in her life, hope was alive. One evening, the mother entered the girl's room without warning. She found the human kneeling on the floor, tools spread like secrets on the carpet. The wires still clung to the girl's legs, faint sparks fading away. The mother froze, her eyes burning like flames. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut stone. The girl's heart stopped. She tried to speak, but fear held her tongue. The human rose slowly, his head bowed. "I was helping her," he said, calm but firm. The mother's voice trembled with fury. "Helping," she snapped. "Humans have no right to touch alien science, no right to touch my daughter." Her anger shook the air. Guards outside the door shifted, waiting for her command. The human did not move, did not beg. Instead, he looked straight into her eyes. "Your people failed," he said quietly. "Your doctors failed, your machines failed, but I will not stop." The room fell silent. No one had ever spoken to the millionaire alien mother like that. Her pride screamed for punishment, her hand lifted to call the guards, but her daughter's voice broke through, trembling but strong. "Mother, please," she cried. "He is helping me. I felt my legs move. I felt them come alive." The mother's hand froze in the air. Her eyes widened, searching her daughter's face. "You felt them," she whispered, her voice cracking. The girl nodded quickly, tears in her eyes. "Yes, mother, I felt them, for the first time in my life." The mother staggered back, her heart torn between fury and hope. Could it be true? Could this fragile human have done what alien science could not? Her pride battled her love. Finally, she lowered her hand, her voice low and trembling. "If you hurt her," she warned, "I will destroy you with all the power I have." The human bowed his head, his voice steady. "I am not here to harm her," he said. "But this path will be hard. It will bring her pain before it brings her freedom." The mother turned to her daughter. "Is this what you want?" she asked softly. "To suffer? To gamble with your life on a human's word?" The girl met her eyes, her small hands shaking but firm. "Yes, mother," she whispered. "I want to try. I want to fight. I want to walk." The mother closed her eyes. Her heart cracked like glass. All her wealth, all her power, and still it came down to this, her daughter's choice. At last she nodded slowly. "Then so be it," she said. "But remember, if you fall, if you break, the blame will be mine to bear." From that night, the human no longer hid. He came each evening, guided by the mother's reluctant permission, but she watched every session with burning eyes, every wire he placed, every spark that ran through her daughter's body. The girl screamed sometimes, tears falling as muscles twisted with pain. The mother's hands shook, wanting to stop it, but the human's voice always rose, calm and steady. "Pain is the doorway," he said. "She must pass through it to reach her freedom." The girl endured, her face pale, her body trembling. Each day she grew stronger, from a twitch to a stretch, from a stretch to a lift. Her legs were awakening, slowly, painfully, but truly. The mother saw it with her own eyes, and though her pride still resisted, her heart whispered the truth. This human was changing everything. One night, after a long session, the girl collapsed into her bed, exhausted. The mother stood in the corner, her voice breaking. "Why do you do this?" she asked the human. "Why risk so much for a child not your own?" The human paused, his hands still. "Because hope should never belong only to the powerful," he said. "Sometimes the weak must teach the strong what hope truly means." The words struck her heart. For the first time in years, the mother felt small, not because of weakness, but because of truth. She looked at her daughter, her fragile smile, her trembling legs, and she realized that all her riches had been empty. This was the only treasure that mattered. The gamble continued. Every night the girl cried out. Every night she fought through fire, and the human stayed by her side, never leaving. The mother watched, torn between fear and awe, until one evening, she saw it. Her daughter rising on her own, not walking yet, not steady but standing, her small frame trembling like a candle in the storm. The mother's breath caught, tears burning her eyes. It was not the end, but it was the beginning. The gamble had begun, and for the first time, the mother dared to believe not in her wealth, not in her power, but in hope, and in the strange, stubborn courage of a human. The nights grew longer, and the palace grew quieter. Behind the tall crystal walls, a battle was being fought in secret. Not a battle of armies, but a battle inside one fragile body. The daughter faced it every evening, her hands gripping the edges of her chair, her eyes burning with both fear and determination. The human placed the device on her legs again. Thin wires spread like veins of fire, carrying invisible energy. He tightened the straps, checked the connections, his face calm but his hands weary. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. The girl nodded, though her voice shook. "Yes, I am ready." The mother sat in the corner, her arms folded, her eyes sharp. Every scream from her daughter stabbed her heart. She hated this pain, hated this struggle, but she could not deny the truth. Each day her daughter grew stronger. Still, she whispered to herself, "How much more can she endure?" The device hummed. The girl gasped as her legs stiffened, her muscles twisted like ropes pulled too tight. The pain ripped through her body, sharp and merciless. She cried out, sweat covering her face. "Stop!" the mother shouted, rising to her feet, but the human shook his head firmly. "Not yet," he said. "She must fight through this storm." The girl's hands shook as she grabbed her mother's gaze. "Do not stop him, mother," she cried, her voice breaking. "I can take it. I must take it." Her words silenced the room. Even in agony, her spirit refused to fall. The pain grew worse. It felt as if her legs were burning from inside. Her bones ached, her veins screamed. She bit her lip until blood touched her tongue. But then, something new. Movement. Her toes curled, her ankle twisted slightly. The human's eyes lit up. "There," he whispered. "Do you feel it?" The girl gasped, her tears mixing with a broken smile. "Yes, I feel it." The mother covered her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. She wanted to run to her child, to hold her, but she stayed still for the first time. She saw not weakness, but strength. Her daughter was not fragile, she was a warrior. Day after day, the struggle continued. The girl screamed, fell, cried, but always rose again. Sometimes she collapsed on the floor, her body refusing to move. The human would kneel beside her, whispering, "Breathe. Do not give up. Every drop of pain is a step closer to freedom." And somehow, she always found the strength to continue. The palace servants whispered rumors. They heard the girl's cries in the night. They saw the human walking the halls with tired eyes. Some said it was cruelty, some said it was madness. But others began to wonder, could it be true? Could the impossible be happening? The mother herself was torn apart. Every night she argued with herself. "Stop this torture," her pride shouted. "Let her fight," her heart answered. In the end, she always stayed, her eyes wet with tears, watching as her daughter fought through fire. One night, the pain grew too much. The girl fell from her chair, her body trembling on the floor, her arms weak, her face pale, her voice almost gone. I cannot, she whispered. I cannot go on. The mother rushed to her, kneeling beside her. My child, she cried. Enough, no more. But the human knelt too, his voice steady. You can. One more try, just one more. The girl looked at him, then at her mother. Her chest rose and fell, her heart pounding. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, I will not die in this chair, I will walk. With a trembling cry, she pushed. Her knees lifted, her body rose. For the first time she balanced without the chair holding her. The mother gasped, her hands shaking. The human smiled faintly, though exhaustion filled his face. Do you see? He whispered. The miracle is already inside her. The girl's legs shook violently. She stood for only a moment before falling back. But that moment was enough. Enough to break the chains of despair. Enough to prove the impossible was possible. Afterward, the girl lay in bed, her body aching. The mother sat beside her, stroking her hair gently. My child, she whispered. Why do you suffer so much? Why do you choose this pain? The girl's eyes fluttered open, her voice weak but filled with fire. Because pain is the price of freedom, she said, and I am ready to pay it. The human, standing near the door, heard her words. His heart tightened, remembering his sister. He closed his eyes, whispering to himself, She will succeed. She must. That night the mother could not sleep. She walked alone in her vast halls, her footsteps echoing against the walls of wealth. For the first time in her life, she realized how powerless money could be. It could not buy courage, it could not buy will, those things her daughter had found within herself. And strangely, through the help of a simple human, the pain would continue, the suffering would grow, but the miracle was already closer than ever. Every scream, every drop of sweat, every fall, they were not signs of weakness, they were signs of a battle being won. The path to walking was not easy, but it was real. And the mother knew deep in her soul that this was only the beginning of the miracle. The palace no longer felt the same. Every corner carried whispers of change. Servants spoke of strange sounds. In the night, of cries and laughter, of footsteps where none had been before. The mother heard the whispers but said nothing. She knew the truth, though her pride still fought against it. Her daughter was no longer the same helpless child she had once been. She was fighting. She was rising. Each evening the human entered with his box of wires and tools, and each evening the girl pushed herself further. The pain still came, sharp and merciless. But after the pain came something new, strength. Her legs no longer felt like dead weight. They trembled, they resisted, they answered her will. The mother watched from her corner, her heart torn every time her daughter screamed. But then she saw her daughter's smile when the pain passed. That smile was stronger than gold, brighter than the stars she owned. For the first time in her life, the mother envied no one. Her daughter was becoming something no treasure could buy. One night, the human placed his hands on the girl's shoulders. Tonight, he said, his voice steady, you will stand without help. The girl's eyes widened, fear flashing inside them. What if I fall? She whispered. The human looked into her eyes, his voice calm. Then you will rise again. One fall is only the beginning of many steps. The mother wanted to stop them, her fear rising like a storm. But she held her tongue. She realized this was no longer her choice. Her daughter's destiny was her own to claim. The wires hummed. The current spread. The girl's legs shook violently. Her hands gripped the chair, her teeth clenched. Sweat rolled down her face. Slowly, trembling, she pushed herself upward. Her knees bent, her muscles screamed, but she did not stop. And then, she stood, without the chair, without support. Her small frame wobbled like a leaf in the wind. But she was standing, truly standing. The mother covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Her child, who had never walked a single step in her life, was now on her feet. The girl's lips trembled. Her voice was barely a whisper. I am standing, she said, her eyes shining with tears. The human nodded slowly, his voice filled with pride. Yes, you are standing, But now comes the harder part. He stepped back, leaving her alone in the center of the room. Her knees shook, her body swayed. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear nothing else. The silence of the room pressed against her. She looked at her mother, who nodded faintly, whispering, "You can do it, my child." The girl took a breath. She lifted her foot, clumsy, heavy. Like lifting a mountain, she pushed it forward, and for the first time in her life, her heel touched the floor. It was a step, unsteady and small, but it was a step. She gasped, laughter breaking from her lips. "I did it," she whispered. "I took a step." Her legs shook, her body threatened to fall, but she lifted her other foot. Another step, and another. The mother fell to her knees, weeping. Her heart could not contain the storm inside. Pride, love, fear, joy, all crashed together. She reached her hands toward her daughter but stopped. She realized this was not her victory, this was her daughter's. The human's eyes softened. He had seen this moment before in his dreams. A child taking their first true step. It was always the same: pain, fear, and then pure light. But seeing it in real life was more powerful than any dream. For weeks, the training continued. The girl no longer cried in despair. Her cries turned to laughter. Every fall became a lesson. Every bruise became proof. She walked across her room, across the hall, even to the balcony. Her steps were shaky, but they were hers. Her mother walked beside her sometimes, afraid to touch, afraid to break the moment, but always smiling, always crying. Soon, the girl began to hide less. Servants saw her standing, saw her walking. They dropped their trays, they bowed in shock. Whispers spread across the palace. "The daughter walks. The impossible has happened." Hope spread like fire through the halls. One evening, the girl stood in front of her mirror. Her reflection showed not a weak child, but a warrior. Her crown rested on her head, her gown shimmered with light. But what shone brightest were her legs, carrying her proudly. She touched the glass, whispering to herself, "I am free, I am alive." The mother entered quietly, watching. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "My daughter, you are stronger than me, stronger than all my riches." The girl turned, tears shining in her eyes. "No, mother," she said softly. "I am stronger because I was never alone." The human stood at the door, silent. He knew his role was almost complete, but in his heart he feared the next step, because miracles bring not only joy but also questions. And soon the world would demand to know how this had happened. For now, though, the palace was filled with light. Every step the girl took was a victory. Every fall was only proof that she had risen again. Her journey was not over, but the rising steps had begun, and nothing could stop her now. The great dining hall glowed with golden lights. Music from alien instruments filled the air like soft waves. Guests in shimmering clothes filled the long table, their voices rising in laughter and polished words. The mother sat at the head of the table, her crown shining, her smile calm. But inside, her heart was trembling. For tonight, her daughter had insisted on joining the feast, and tonight, the world would see what the mother had seen in secret. The daughter entered slowly, her gown flowing like silver water. Servants guided her floating chair to the table, as they had done all her life. The guests bowed politely, whispering among themselves. Some pitied her, others mocked in silence. To them, she was the fragile child of a powerful woman, a symbol of weakness hidden under wealth. But the girl carried a secret inside her chest, a secret that was ready to break the chains of their whispers. The human stood quietly at the edge of the hall, half hidden by shadows. He wore no jewels, no crown, no shining robes, but his eyes never left the girl. He knew what was about to happen, and his heart beat like thunder in his chest. Dinner began. The clinking of glasses echoed through the hall. Guests praised the mother for her success, her empire, her endless fortune. But their words felt empty to her. She cared only for the quiet figure sitting beside her. Her daughter's hands rested calmly on the table. but her eyes burned with fire. Halfway through the meal, the girl moved. Her chair slid back with a soft hum. The guests barely noticed, at first too busy with their shining plates, but then silence spread like a wave. The girl's hands gripped the table, her body trembled. Slowly, carefully, she pushed herself upward. The mother's eyes widened, her breath caught. Time seemed to freeze. The girl rose higher, her legs shaking but holding her weight. She was standing in front of everyone. Gasps filled the hall, glasses slipped from hands. The mother's plate slid from her fingers, crashing to the floor, food spilling across the golden tiles. The sound echoed like thunder, silencing every voice. The girl lifted her foot, one step forward, then another. Her gown swayed, her face shone with tears. "I can walk," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I can walk." The guests stared in shock. Some rose to their feet, their eyes wide with disbelief. Others whispered, their voices trembling. "This is impossible. No alien doctor could do this. What power is behind her?" The mother's chest heaved, her hands trembled. She wanted to run and hold her child, but her body would not move. It was as if the universe itself had stolen her strength. Her daughter walked across the floor, each step heavy but filled with glory. The hall was no longer a hall, it was a temple of miracles. The girl turned her eyes to her mother. Her smile broke through the storm of tears. "Mother," she whispered, "look at me." The mother fell to her knees, her heart breaking. "My child," she whispered back, "my miracle." But the hall was not silent for long. Voices rose again, sharper now, suspicious, jealous, afraid. "Who healed her?" One guest demanded. "What secret is this?" Another cried. "Was it forbidden science? Was it a deal with humans?" The mother lifted her head, her eyes blazing. Her empire shook with every question, every stare. If she spoke the truth, the human would be in danger. But lies could not cover what was standing before them all. She looked at her daughter, then at the shadow in the corner, the man who had made the impossible real. The girl's voice rose clear and steady. "Thanks to him," she said, pointing toward the human. Every eye turned. The hall grew colder. A human, weak, ordinary, unworthy, in the eyes of aliens, stood still under their gaze. The guests erupted, their voices like a storm. A human. This cannot be. How could one of them succeed where our kind failed? The human did not speak, his eyes calm. He had no crown, no power, but he had something greater, hope, courage, and the unyielding will to try. The mother's body shook. She had never bowed to anyone, never admitted weakness. But tonight, before her guests, before her world, she felt the truth. Her daughter's miracle did not belong to alien pride. It belonged to humanity. The hall filled with chaos. Some demanded answers. Others whispered of danger. But the mother silenced them with a single cry. "Enough!" she roared, her voice echoing across the golden walls. She rose to her feet, tears streaming down her face. "This is my daughter's victory, and no one will take it from her." The guests fell silent. The girl stood proudly, her small body shaking but her spirit unbroken. The human remained in the shadows, silent, and the mother, powerful and proud, lowered her head for the first time in her life, not to wealth, not to kings, not to empires, but to the truth that stood before her. Her daughter walked, and a human had given her back the sky. The hall was still heavy with silence. The daughter stood in the center, trembling but tall, her tears shining like jewels. The alien guests sat frozen, their golden cups untouched, their proud eyes full of disbelief. At the far edge of the room stood the human, quiet, steady, almost invisible among so much wealth. Yet everyone knew the truth now. He was the one who had done this. The mother slowly rose from her knees. Her heart beat like thunder, her pride in pieces, her love stronger than ever. For years she had believed alien science was the highest power. For years she had trusted only in money, only in her own kind. But tonight she had seen the impossible. And it was a human who had brought it. The guests began to whisper again, their voices sharp. This cannot stand. A human must have stolen forbidden knowledge. He must be punished. Their words cut through the air like knives. The mother's chest burned with fury. She turned to them, her voice like a storm. Be silent, she commanded. This man gave me what none of you could. He gave me my daughter's freedom. The guests stared in shock. Never before had the proud alien mother defended a human, but her voice carried no doubt, no weakness. It carried truth. The girl took another step forward, her gown brushing against the floor. Her smile glowed through tears. Mother, she whispered, I walk because of him. Her words rang across, the hall pure and unshaken. The mother's eyes softened. She turned slowly toward the human, her lips trembled, her voice low. Why? She asked. Why would you risk everything for her? The human stepped forward at last. His steps were calm, though every alien eye followed him with suspicion. He bowed his head slightly, his voice humble. Because no child should live without hope. He said, I could not save my sister, but I could save her, and that was enough. The girl's eyes filled with fresh tears. She remembered his story, the pain he carried, and now she understood. He had given her more than healing. He had given her his heart. The mother closed her eyes, her chest heavy. For the first time in her life, she bowed her head. Her voice broke as she spoke. Thank you, human. The hall gasped. The proud alien millionaire mother, who had never bowed to kings or empires, now bowed before a simple human. The guests could not believe what they saw. Some whispered in anger, others in awe. But none could deny the truth before them. A miracle had walked across their floor, and it had come not from alien hands, but from human will. The mother lifted her daughter into her arms, holding her tightly. She whispered, her voice soft but firm, You are stronger than me, my child, stronger than all my riches. The girl smiled, resting her head on her mother's shoulder. I am strong because I was never alone, she said. Her eyes drifted to the human, full of gratitude, full of love. Days turned into weeks, and the story spread. Across cities, across stars, the tale was whispered. The daughter of the alien millionaire walks thanks to a human. Some laughed, some doubted, some feared, but many began to wonder. Perhaps humans carried something aliens had forgotten, something no science could copy. Hope, the mother, no longer hid her gratitude. She welcomed the human into her halls. Not as a servant, not as a guest, but as family. When the girl practiced her steps in the gardens, he was always there. When she stumbled, he caught her. When she rose again, he smiled. And every time, the mother's heart grew softer. She had built empires, but now she was building something greater. Trust. One evening, as the stars filled the sky, the mother stood beside the human. Her voice was quiet, almost fragile. You changed everything, she said. You showed me that power is not in wealth or pride, but in love and persistence. The human shook his head gently. I only gave her the chance. She did the rest. The mother smiled faintly. Then humans carry something my people must learn. For you have taught me that true strength lies not in perfection, but in the refusal to surrender. The girl walked across the garden that night, her steps steady, her laughter ringing like music. She spun once, unsteady but free, her mother's eyes filled with tears, the human's chest filled with quiet pride, and the stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe itself was watching this small miracle. From that day forward, the mother never looked at humans the same way. They were not weak, not lesser. They were warriors of spirit. And whenever she saw her daughter walking, she whispered to herself, thanks to humanity, the tale became legend, not of wealth, not of alien pride, but of one girl who rose from her chair, of a mother who bowed her head, and of a human who reminded the stars that miracles are born not from power, but from hope.